thunder shattered the reunion picnic. As the wooden bridge groaned, Liam Carter, single dad and former Army medic, dived into the Black River while cousins yelled his name. He smashed a window, pulled a woman in a red gown free, and worked breath back into her lungs beside a spilled metal briefcase. By sunrise, satellite trucks crowded the dirt road. She wasn't just anyone. She was Adelaide Kingsley, elusive CEO of Kingsley Biotech, the company entwined with the tragedy that once shattered his family forever and changed everything. The afternoon had started with such promise. Pine trees framed the Carter family estate near Flathead Lake in Montana, their needles releasing the warm scent of summer. Liam Carter stood near the barbecue pit, a spatula in one hand, watching his 8-year-old son Leo sketch something in his ever-present notebook. The boy had inherited his father's careful attention to detail, documenting everything from the arrival times of relatives to the make and model of every truck that rolled up the gravel driveway. Liam was 36, lean and weathered from years of outdoor work fixing farm equipment in town. His hands bore the scars of both professions, combat medicine and mechanical repair. 3 years had passed since he'd lost his sister Bridget to what the death certificate called respiratory failure. But what Liam knew in his gut was something far more sinister. The prescription painkillers she'd received through the local pharmacy had come from somewhere dark, somewhere connected to corporate greed. But without proof, without resources, the case had gone nowhere. Around him, the Carter clan gathered. Cousin George manned the drink cooler, his booming laugh carrying across the lawn. Bonnie, Bridget's younger sister, helped set up folding tables, though her hands still trembled when anyone mentioned Bridget's name. Even Clinton, a distant cousin who'd made it to law school, had driven up from Missoula, though Liam had never warmed to the man's calculating eyes. Leo tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, there's weird clouds coming." The boy pointed west, where a line of bruised thunderheads massed against the mountain ridges. Montana weather could turn vicious without warning, but the forecast had promised clear skies. "We'll keep an eye on it, champ," Liam said, ruffling his son's hair. "Keep noting things in that book of yours. You're going to be a fine engineer someday." What none of them knew was that 15 miles away, a sleek black sedan was hydroplaning on a Forest Service road, its driver white-knuckled and desperate. Adelaide Kingsley sat rigid in the passenger seat, her red evening gown incongruous against the wild landscape. She'd left a charity gala in Kalispell without explanation, clutching a locked metal briefcase that contained 3 years of compiled evidence, contracts, emails, ledgers, and one handwritten letter that haunted her dreams. She was 34, the reluctant heir to Kingsley Biotech, a pharmaceutical empire her father had built on innovation and, she'd recently discovered, corruption. The briefcase held proof that a third-party supplier, approved by her father and his chief legal counsel, had cut costs by manufacturing counterfeit pain medications. Those medications had reached rural pharmacies across Montana, and they had killed people. Adelaide had spent months secretly copying files, photographing documents in her father's study when he traveled, convincing one mid-level accountant to hand over the ghost ledgers. Tonight, she'd planned to deliver everything to Assistant District Attorney Serena Wilkins in Helena, a woman known for taking on corporate malfeasance. But someone had noticed her absence from the gala. Someone had made a call. The first bolt of lightning split the sky as the storm front accelerated. At the Carter estate, the temperature dropped 10 degrees in as many minutes. George shouted for everyone to grab the food and head toward the main lodge. Leo's notebook entry would later read, 3:47 p.m. wind-changed trucks arrived weird. He'd spotted the 2 black SUVs with no license plates parking just beyond the property line. But before he could tell his father, the world exploded into rain and chaos. Adelaide's sedan fishtailed onto the old wooden bridge that spanned a tributary feeding into the lake. The driver braked hard. The bridge, weakened by spring floods and never properly repaired, shuddered. Then, with a sound like snapping bones, the center supports gave way. The car tilted, slid, and plunged into the swollen river below. Liam saw it happen. One moment he was herding Leo toward shelter. The next, He heard the crack and splash. His combat medic training overrode everything else. George, call 911. Clinton, get blankets from the lodge. Bonnie, take Leo inside and keep him there. His voice carried the command authority of someone who'd triaged wounded soldiers under fire. He sprinted toward the bank, shedding his jacket, his mind calculating water temperature, current speed, survivability windows. The car was sinking fast, nose down in the murky water. Through the rain/darkness, he could barely make out a figure inside, pounding weakly against the glass. Liam didn't hesitate. He dove. The cold hit him like a fist. The river churned with runoff, thick with sediment. He kicked hard, following the dark shape of the vehicle as it settled on the rocky bottom in about 12 feet of water. His lungs already burned. He found the rear passenger window, braced his feet against the car frame, and slammed his elbow into the glass, once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th strike, it shattered. Water flooded in, equalizing pressure. Liam pulled himself through the broken window, found the woman in the red dress tangled in her seatbelt, her eyes half open and unfocused. He yanked his pocket knife free and sawed through the belt webbing, grabbed her under the arms, and kicked toward the surface. They broke into the air together. Liam gasped, rain pelting his face, and pulled her toward the shore. George was there, wading in to help drag them both onto the muddy bank. The metal briefcase had tumbled out of the car and now lay half buried in the gravel downstream. Leo, disobeying orders, had crept close enough to grab it, clutching it to his small chest as if he just rescued his father's toolbox. Liam laid the woman flat, checked her airway, felt for a pulse. Weak and thready. Her lips were blue. He tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and delivered 2 rescue breaths. Then he began chest compressions, counting aloud, methodical, and relentless. "Come on," he muttered. "Don't you quit on me." On the 18th compression, she coughed. Water spilled from her mouth. She gasped, choked, gasped again. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and terrified. Liam rolled her onto her side, supporting her as she retched river water onto the stones. "You're okay," he said quietly. "You're safe. I've got you." George arrived with wool blankets. Bonnie hovered nearby, pale and shaking. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance. But the storm had knocked out power across the valley, and the nearest ambulance was 20 minutes out on flooded roads. "We'll shelter her at the lodge," Liam decided. "She needs warmth and monitoring. George, keep calling it in. Let them know we've got a survivor with possible hypothermia." As they lifted her, Adelaide tried to speak, but her voice came out as a broken rasp. "Case." She reached weakly toward where Leo stood. "Briefcase." "We've got it, ma'am," Liam assured her. "Just focus on breathing." But as he carried her toward the lodge, he caught sight of a small embroidered logo on the lapel of her soaked coat, a corporate gift from some pharmaceutical conference. The design made his stomach tighten. He knew that logo. Everyone in Montana who'd followed the opioid crisis knew that logo. Kingsley Biotech. Inside the lodge, Liam moved with calm efficiency, directing his cousins like an ER team. They got Adelaide out of her wet clothes and into dry thermal layers. He monitored her temperature, checked her pupils, listened to her lungs for signs of aspiration. She was stable, but disoriented, slipping in and out of consciousness. "Call me Ada," she whispered at one point, when Liam asked her name. "Okay, Ada. You're doing fine. Just rest." Leo sat cross-legged in the corner, the briefcase beside him, his notebook open to a fresh page. He wrote, "Dad saved her 4:51 p.m. briefcase, heavy metal locks." He sketched the Carter family crest carved above the lodge fireplace, then added a smaller drawing of the woman's face, peaceful now in sleep. George returned from the satellite phone, his expression troubled. He pulled Liam aside. "Got through to the hospital. They're sending someone as soon as the road's clear." "But Liam, I caught a news bulletin on the AM band. There's a missing persons alert. For Adelaide Kingsley, CEO, of Kingsley Biotech. Left a gala in Kalispell. Last seen heading east. Liam looked at the woman sleeping fitfully on the couch. Then he looked at the briefcase. Then he looked at his son, who was watching everything with those quiet, intelligent eyes. "She's the CEO," he said slowly, "of the company that made the pills that killed Bridget." "What are you going to do?" George asked. Liam was silent for a long moment. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, the fire crackled. He thought about the Hippocratic oath he'd sworn as a medic to protect life, to do no harm. He thought about Bridget's last days, her desperate fight against pain that had spiraled into dependence, then overdose, then death. He thought about Leo, watching him, learning from him what it meant to be a man of honor. "I'm going to keep her alive," Liam said quietly. "And then I'm going to find out why she was running." By dawn, the storm had passed. But the world outside had transformed. Satellite news trucks lined the muddy road. A sheriff's deputy had arrived, asking polite questions. The story was already spreading: CEO rescued from river by local veteran. Adelaide had woken fully around 5 in the morning, her mind clear, her voice stronger. She found Liam on the porch, drinking black coffee and watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. She wore borrowed clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt that belonged to Bonnie. Without the evening gown and corporate polish, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "You know who I am," she said. "It wasn't a question. I do now," Liam replied. "And you saved me anyway. I'm a medic. It's what I do." He turned to face her. "But I want to know why you were running. And what's in that briefcase?" Adelaide sat down beside him, careful to keep distance between them. "I need to make a call. To a federal prosecutor. Someone I can trust. I have evidence. Evidence that my company, my father's company, has been distributing counterfeit medications through a third-party supplier. It's killed people. Probably dozens. Maybe more." Liam's jaw tightened. "My sister, Bridget Carter. 3 years ago. Respiratory failure after taking prescribed pain medication she got from the pharmacy in town." Adelaide closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm risking everything, because people like your sister deserved better. And the people responsible need to face justice. Why should I trust you?" The question came out harder than Liam intended. "You're the CEO. You profit from this." She reached into the pocket of the borrowed jeans and pulled out a folded, water-stained paper, an email she'd kept as insurance. She handed it to him. "This is correspondence between my father's chief counsel, Clinton Ward, and the supplier. It proves they knew. They knew the medications were substandard, and they buried the reports. I found this 6 months ago. I've been gathering everything since then." Liam read it. His hands shook. "Clinton Ward. My cousin Clinton works for your company. He's your chief legal counsel," Adelaide said. "I didn't know you were related until now. But yes, he's one of the architects of the cover-up." The pieces clicked into place. Clinton's expensive suits. His new car. His evasiveness whenever anyone mentioned Bridget's case. Liam felt a cold fury settle over him. But beneath it, a strange clarity. This woman, this CEO, was trying to burn down her own empire to expose the truth. She could have stayed silent, stayed rich, stayed safe. "I'll help you," Liam said. "But there are rules. My son's safety comes first. You follow my lead out here. This is my territory, and the people coming after you, they're going to be dangerous. Agreed?" "Agreed." Adelaide extended her hand. They shook, and in that moment, an alliance was forged. Inside, Leo had been watching the 2 black SUVs through his toy binoculars. He wrote down their partial plate numbers and the time they'd arrived. He sketched the men inside dressed too formally for a rural rescue scene. When one of them stepped out to make a phone call, Leo noted the earpiece, the bulge of a concealed weapon. By mid-morning, the first direct threat arrived. The power had been restored, but the phone lines were still down. A man in a dark suit approached the lodge, flanked by two others who looked more like private security than corporate attorneys. The lead man introduced himself as Bernie Pike, head of corporate security for Kingsley Biotech. "We're here to ensure Miss Kingsley's safe return," Bernie said smoothly, "and to retrieve company property." Liam stepped between Pike and the lodge door. "Miss Kingsley is recovering from near drowning. She's not going anywhere until a doctor clears her. And any property you're referring to stays put until the sheriff says otherwise." Pike's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Carter, I understand you're a good Samaritan, but you're interfering in corporate matters you don't understand. That briefcase contains proprietary information. Legally, it belongs to Kingsley Biotech. Then you can file a claim with the county clerk on Monday," Liam said evenly. "Until then, it's evidence in a vehicular accident under investigation." The standoff held for another beat. Then Pike nodded slowly. "We'll be nearby. For Miss Kingsley's protection." "Of course." He handed Liam a business card. "Call if you reconsider." As they drove away, Adelaide appeared at Liam's shoulder. "That was Bernie Pike. He reports directly to my father. If he's here, it means they know what I took, and they'll do anything to get it back." "Good thing I called in a favor," Liam said. A dusty pickup truck pulled up, and a broad-shouldered man in a sheriff's uniform stepped out. "Otis Brennan. We served together. He's the county sheriff now, and he owes me one." That night, Pike and his team made their move. The lodge lights went out all at once, a cut wire, not a blown fuse. Rocks clattered against the windows. A diversion. Liam had anticipated this. He gathered the family into the main room, set George at the front door with a shotgun and a phone, and led Adelaide and Leo out the back toward his truck. They made it halfway across the clearing when figures emerged from the tree line. Bernie Pike's voice called out, "The briefcase. Carter, hand it over, and everyone goes home safe." Liam had the briefcase in one hand, his other arm around Leo. Adelaide stood close, her breath visible in the cold mountain air. "You're trespassing," Liam called back. "And threatening a child. Sheriff's already on his way. You want to add kidnapping to your charges." A flashlight beam cut across them. Pike stepped forward, flanked by two men with tactical vests. "Last chance." Liam's response was calculated. He pressed a button on the radio clipped to his belt, a frequency Otis was monitoring. Then he moved. Years of hand-to-hand combat training took over. He shoved Leo toward Adelaide, dropped low, and swept the nearest man's legs out from under him. A rapid wrist lock disarmed the second. Pike lunged for the briefcase, but Liam drove an elbow into his solar plexus, folding the man in half. Sirens wailed in the distance. Pike staggered back, gasping. "This isn't over. That briefcase belongs to us." "No," Adelaide said, stepping forward. "It belongs to the families your company destroyed. And you're going to answer for it." Pike retreated into the darkness. By the time Otis arrived with two deputies, the security team was gone. But the message was clear they'd be back. Otis took one look at the situation and made a decision. "Carter property isn't safe. I've got a cabin up in the high country, old Forest Service lease. No one knows about it except me and a few hunting buddies. You three should disappear up there until we can coordinate with the feds." They hiked through the night, rain starting again, cold and relentless. Leo stayed close to his father, the briefcase now in Adelaide's hands. They reached the cabin as dawn broke, a rough-hewn structure with a stone fireplace, propane stove, and no electricity. Liam got a fire going while Adelaide made coffee on the camp stove. Leo spread his notebook on the table, showing her his sketches and observations. "You're very good at details," she said gently. "Dad says details matter," Leo replied. He says lives get saved or lost because of details. Adelaide looked at Liam, who was coaxing the fire to life with practiced efficiency. Your dad's right. As the cabin warmed, the three of them sat around the fire. The storm outside had settled into a steady rain. Adelaide finally opened the briefcase, spreading documents across the floor. She explained the supply chain, how a legitimate pharmaceutical company had outsourced production to cut costs, how Clinton Ward had buried safety reports, how her father, William Kingsley, had approved payments to silence whistleblowers. I found a letter, Adelaide said quietly. She pulled out a water-stained envelope. I wrote it 3 years ago, to a woman named Bridget Carter. I was trying to investigate complaints about our medications. She'd written to the company hotline. I wanted to tell her I believed her, that I'd look into it. But my father intercepted it. I found it in his desk last month. Liam took the letter with shaking hands. Bridget's name was on the envelope. The postmark was dated 2 weeks before she died. Inside, Adelaide's handwriting was careful and compassionate. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I promise I will find the truth. You deserve justice. She never got this, Liam said, his voice hoarse. I know. I'm sorry. I tried. But I wasn't strong enough then. I didn't know how deep the corruption went. Now I do. And I'm going to make it right, even if it costs me everything. Leo looked between them. Are you and Dad going to be friends now? Adelaide smiled, tears tracking down her cheeks. I hope so, Leo. I really hope so. Liam made a decision then, watching his son and this woman who was trying to atone for sins, not entirely her own. We're going to Helena. We're going to deliver this briefcase to the prosecutor, all of us together. And we're going to see this through. Adelaide nodded. Together, the journey to Helena took 2 days, moving cautiously through back roads and forestry routes. Liam used his old military radio to monitor police and emergency frequencies, steering clear of roadblocks. Adelaide reviewed the documents, preparing her testimony. Leo filled pages of his notebook with maps and observations, a child's version of tactical planning. But Pike and his team were closing in. Clinton Ward had filed an emergency injunction, claiming Adelaide was mentally unfit and had stolen corporate property. The legal pressure was mounting. A warrant had been issued for the briefcase's return. They reached the outskirts of Helena on a gray morning. Adelaide had called ahead to Serena Wilkins, the federal prosecutor, arranging to meet at the county courthouse, where media presence would provide a layer of protection. But as they pulled into the parking lot, they saw it a wall of reporters, courthouse security, and in the middle of it all, Clinton Ward flanked by a team of corporate attorneys. It's a trap, Liam said. It's our only shot, Adelaide replied. She looked at Leo. Sweetheart, I need you to be very brave. Can you do that? Leo nodded, clutching his notebook. They stepped out of the truck. Immediately, camera flashes exploded around them. Clinton pushed forward, holding up a legal document. Adelaide Kingsley is under court order to return company property. That briefcase is evidence of corporate theft. Anyone aiding her is subject to arrest. Sheriff Otis appeared, his face grim. I've got conflicting orders here, Carter. Federal prosecutor says she's got a right to surrender evidence voluntarily. State court says it's corporate property. Adelaide raised her voice. I'm here to surrender evidence of criminal wrongdoing by Kingsley Biotech. 3 years ago, counterfeit medications killed people across Montana. My company knew. My father knew. And I have proof. Clinton sneered. You have stolen documents and paranoid delusions. Your father's already initiating proceedings to have you removed from the CEO position for mental incompetence. The crowd of reporters surged forward. Leo pressed close to his father. Liam felt everything slipping away. They'd come so far, risked so much, and now it was coming down to a legal technicality. Then a woman's voice cut through the chaos. That won't be necessary. Serena Wilkins stepped forward, flanked by 2 FBI agents. She was 50, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone who'd fought corporate giants before. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Serena Wilkins, and I'm here to inform the court that the federal government has been conducting its own investigation into Kingsley Biotech for the past 6 months. Clinton paled. That's impossible. Not impossible, Serena said calmly. A concerned citizen established a dead man's switch 3 years ago. Bridget Carter, before she died, encrypted copies of her medical records and correspondence with Kingsley Biotech. She set them to release to my office if she didn't check in every 30 days. The data arrived 5 months ago. We've been building a case ever since. The briefcase Miss Kingsley is holding contains the final pieces. Liam's knees almost buckled. Bridget. His sister had been smarter than any of them knew. She'd protected them all from beyond the grave. Adelaide stepped forward and handed the briefcase to Serena. Everything you need is in here. Contracts, ledgers, emails, and this. She pulled out the letter she'd written to Bridget. I tried to help her. I was too late. But I'm not too late for everyone else. Serena opened the briefcase, and one of the FBI agents began photographing the contents for evidence. William Kingsley and Clinton Ward. You're both under federal arrest for conspiracy to distribute adulterated pharmaceuticals, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bernie Pike tried to melt into the crowd, but Liam spotted him. That's the man who tried to kill us to get that briefcase back, he called out. Otis and 2 deputies were on Pike in seconds, bringing him down with professional efficiency. The scene dissolved into controlled chaos arrests, reporters shouting questions, lawyers scrambling. Through it all, Adelaide stood with Liam and Leo, the 3 of them an island of calm. She put her hand on Leo's shoulder. Thank you for being brave. Did we win? Leo asked. Yeah, champ, Liam said, his voice rough, with emotion. We won. The trial took 8 months. William Kingsley and Clinton Ward both faced federal charges. Bernie Pike turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. Providing testimony about the cover-up, Adelaide resigned as CEO, but stayed on as a cooperating witness, providing testimony that was clear, unflinching, and devastating. Kingsley Biotech was restructured under federal oversight. A compensation fund was established for victims' families, and Adelaide, using her personal assets, created the Bridget Carter Community Health Fund to provide free addiction treatment and pain management across rural Montana. Liam returned to his life in the small town, but something had shifted. He enrolled in an advanced paramedic certification program, determined to give his community better emergency care. Leo received a scholarship from the new fund, no strings attached, just an investment in a bright kid's future. And Adelaide stayed. Not in the corporate towers of California, but in Montana. She rented a small house near the Carter estate and spent her days working with the fund, meeting families, listening to stories, trying to heal wounds that money alone couldn't fix. One evening, she joined the Carter family for dinner. It was awkward at first, this woman who represented so much pain, now sitting at their table. But as the meal went on, something softened. Adelaide taught Leo how to play chess, explaining strategy in terms that reminded Liam of military tactics. She laughed at George's terrible jokes. She listened to Bonnie talk about Bridget. Without flinching, after dinner, Liam walked Adelaide to her car. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the water gold and crimson. You didn't have to stay, he said. I know. But I wanted to. This is where the work matters. This is where I can actually make a difference. She paused. And this is where you are. Liam looked at her, really looked. Not as the CEO who'd destroyed his family, but as the woman who'd risked everything to make it right. My sister would have liked you. I wish I could have known her. She left us a gift, Liam said. The dead man's switch. The evidence. She was protecting us even after she was gone. And in a way, she brought you to us. Gave us a chance to do the right thing. Adelaide's eyes filled with tears. Do you think she'd forgive me? I think, Liam said slowly, she'd thank you. for finishing what she started, for caring enough to burn it all down. They stood in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the mountains. Leo appeared on the porch, waving. Adelaide waved back. "He's a special kid. He gets it from his aunt," Liam said. Then, after a pause, "Stay for breakfast tomorrow? Leo's making pancakes. They're terrible, but we eat them anyway." Adelaide smiled. "I'd love to." 1 year later, on a bright autumn day, the Bridget Carter Community Health Wing opened at the county hospital. A bronze plaque near the entrance bore Bridget's photograph and a quote she'd once written in a journal. "Justice delayed is still justice. Keep fighting." Adelaide stood at the podium, addressing a crowd of families, medical staff, and local officials. 3 years ago, my company failed you. It failed Bridget Carter. It failed everyone who trusted us to do the right thing. I can't undo that. But I can promise that the rest of my life will be spent trying to earn back that trust. This building is just the start. Liam sat in the front row with Leo, who was now 9 and growing like a weed. The boy still carried his notebook everywhere, now filled with engineering designs and medical diagrams. He decided he wanted to be a trauma surgeon. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Adelaide found Liam by the memorial garden. She was quieter now, less polished, more real. "I keep waiting for someone to tell me I haven't done enough," she said. "You've done more than enough," Liam replied. "You gave people their lives back. You gave them hope." "We did," Adelaide corrected. "You could have let me drown. You could have turned me over to Pike. You could have walked away at any point. But you chose to believe I could change. That mattered." Liam took her hand, a gesture that had become familiar over the months of working together, of shared dinners, of slowly building something neither of them had planned. "You kept your promise to Bridget. You made sure her death meant something." They walked together toward the lake, Leo running ahead to skip stones across the water. The Montana sky stretched endless overhead, full of possibility. Behind them, the hospital stood as a monument not just to Bridget, but to the power of choosing justice over comfort, truth over silence. And in his pocket, Liam carried Leo's notebook, open to a page where the boy had written in his careful script. "Dad saved everyone. Miss Adelaide made it right. Together, they're heroes." The end. But also, the beginning. It was exactly that. An ending and a beginning. Bound together by courage, sacrifice, and the slow, hard work of redemption. The briefcase that had started it all